Hello and welcome to Around the Wickets by ThePapare.com. As you know, we take a close look at our favorite sport and all that's happening in cricket, because we know cricket is the sport as far as Sri Lanka is concerned, and lots of people are very, very interested to know how Sri Lanka cricket is going to move forward. Now, as we know, India-Sri Lanka wasn't the way it really should have ended. Sri Lanka really losing out in that third test match, and as we know, it was the top order that failed again. Now, if you take a closer look at that Sri Lankan batting, if you take away Angelo Matthews and you take away Dinesh Chandimal, the rest of the batting has been a disaster. Lahiru Thirimana was the next best in 3 games. He got just over 140 runs, but Dimuth Karunaratne and also Kaushal Silva not really getting amongst the runs, which was a huge problem. And also, one was a bit surprised to see Upul Taranga being asked to open in that third test match, especially because Dimuth Karunaratne was, to me, the established opener. Now, what was Sri Lanka trying to do? Was it desperation? Were they looking for new combinations? Were they looking for somebody new at number 3? So there were questions that went unanswered, and in the end, Sri Lanka just wasn't good enough to try and overhaul that Indian score, because 380 plus was never achieved in Sri Lanka, never chased in Sri Lanka. It was always going to be a tough ask. And at one stage when Angelo Matthews and Kusal Perera were batting, I really thought that the Sri Lankans might pull it off, because India, on a pitch that looked to be helping the fast bowlers, helping the spinners, had suddenly lost its venom, with Kusal Perera playing shots, and all he needed to do was to survive till tea and then enjoy the new ball. But sadly, Ashwin came over the wicket, tried to bowl his leg stump line, and Kusal Perera just fell a prey looking to play that reverse sweep, and then after tea, it was the new ball. So Sri Lanka losing the series 2-1, and a series that I thought Sri Lanka could have won, mainly because the Sri Lankan batting, as I said earlier, didn't click. Now, there were a few bright lights or silver lines in those dark clouds, and one of them was Dhammika Prasad. The way he bowled and the lion-hearted effort by the Sri Lankan fast bowler clearly indicates that he has come of age as a test fast bowler for Sri Lanka. And this is the first time that Dhammika Prasad played 6 consecutive games in one summer or one season, as you might call it, because he used to be injury prone, but this time he did play 3 matches against Pakistan. He also played those 3 test matches against India, which was outstanding. Bowled with good pace, good heart, and one thing that he always did was he had a wicket with the new ball, which was great. And the Indians were always on the back foot and always looking suspicious against Dhammika Prasad. So that's what happened in that India-Sri Lanka series. Besides, there were a few moments, especially some hot-tempered moments. And I really thought that the match referee was a little bit unfair by the Sri Lankans, particularly the way he handled Ishant Sharma, because we were told until the last day, Ishant Sharma had not been fined. Now, these are unofficial reports. I can't confirm it, but this is what I heard. He had not been framed. No charge had been filed. It was just the 3 Sri Lankan cricketers who were facing a fine before Ishant Sharma was also charged. So, in any event, it was a hot-tempered series with Sri Lanka frustrated and Ishant Sharma just struggling to cope with the short pitch bowling of Dhammika Prasad, and then his reaction. It was all unnecessary, but thankfully the series ended on in a lighter way, with both teams congratulating each other. So that's as far as the Sri Lanka versus India series. India winning the series after 22 years. It was in 22 years that India beat Sri Lanka in Sri Lanka, and that's quite a wait. And this is just the first time that the Indians had come from behind outside India to win a series after being 1-0 down. So a lot of credit for India, but Sri Lanka certainly they do have to go back to the drawing board and relook at their strategy. Now, talking about relooking at the Sri Lanka strategy, the first thing that has happened, the first head to roll has been Marvan Atapattu. It was expected, I thought, after Sri Lanka lost to Pakistan, that Marvan's time, the days were numbered, and Marvan Atapattu had time till end of September, but immediately at the end of the series he decided to resign. And one has to take one's hat off to Marvan Atapattu for the way he decided to make that decision. It's a tough decision. It's never easy to take responsibility, but Marvan Atapattu, the head coach, did take responsibility, and he has resigned, paving the way for Sri Lanka now to look at new blood. Now, let's not forget that Marvan Atapattu was the seventh head coach following Bayliss, Law, Ratnaik. Of course, Ramesh Ratnaik was a stopgap arrangement. Jeff Marsh was plucked from nowhere. Graham Ford and Paul Fabres. And mind you, that in a 5-year period, now that's a lot. That's a lot of coaches to change. And we have heard that it could be Chandika Hathurusinghe, it could be Graham Ford. These are all unconfirmed, but it's interesting to see. I've also read that the Sri Lanka Interim Committee thinks that Jerome Jayaratne, who's the head of coaching, can sit in for the West Indies series until Sri Lanka finds the right person. Now, it's always important, they say in management, you don't pick the wrong person if you don't have the right person. So it's time that Sri Lanka just watched very carefully, assessed the applicants, and they looked at picking the right person. Now, there were also some shocking news for Sri Lanka, though I was expecting this, Tarindu Kaushal being reported. Now, you may not know, but when Kaushal played against Pakistan, there were murmurs. There were people who were murmuring, saying that Kaushal's action was illegal. And it was only a matter of time against India. And I was expecting Kaushal to be reported, and that's exactly what happened. Now, he will undergo training, or I would say undergo a test on his action, and hopefully there'll be some remedial work done within 14 days. And let's hope that Tarindu Kaushal will be able to overcome this, because here is one young player who's exciting and who can take Sri Lanka's bowling to the next level in the future. Now, don't forget, he took 13 wickets against India in the series. He was inconsistent, but he certainly had the making of a very fine off-spinner. So let's see what Tarindu Kaushal's fate is going to be. But we all Sri Lankans hope that Kaushal will be able to come through. Now, that's as far as local cricket is concerned. England are playing Australia in a one-day series, and the Australians have got off to a magnificent start. They've beaten England in the first 2 games, and interestingly, I wonder whether you saw Ben Stokes' dismissal. He was given out handling the ball. Now, that's a very, very tough call. Now, I watched it very closely. Now, at the normal speed, you cannot possibly accept that Ben Stokes was looking to stop the ball coming to the stumps. I thought it was more out of protection, that he just put his hand out to try and protect himself from the throw. But when you look at the slow motion, well, it tends to kind of convinced me that Ben Stokes was aware of what he was doing. So now, in the day and age of slow motion and technology and third umpires, maybe you can't falter the third umpire for ruling Ben Stokes out, though lots of people are talking about the spirit of the game. But, you cannot be talking about a spirit if you're not keeping to the rules and regulations of the game. Now, if Ben Stokes was breaking the rule, there is no question of a spirit. If he had clearly tried to handle the ball, stop the ball, obstructed, then there is no question of a spirit. Then he's broken the law and he has to be given out. And that's how the Aussies saw it. The English didn't agree, and in the end, the third umpire did rule it in the favour of Australia. So England have gone down 2 games. They've lost the first 2 games, and they got 3 games to go, and they'll be hoping that they might be able to come up with something very special come the 3rd game, because they need to keep the hopes alive in the series, or otherwise England would have won the Ashes, but not the one-day series, as they generally lose to Australia in limited over cricket. Also, Shane Watson, as expected, has decided to retire from Test cricket. This would mean that Australians wouldn't find him reviewing LBW appeals when he's given out, because he had that problem. Shuffles across his terms have been given out LBW numerous times, and finally Shane Watson calling it a day. Good decision, which means he will be playing T20 cricket and one-day cricket. And today, the modern cricketer has lots of options, not just Test cricket. They have lots of options in terms of other cricket as well. So Shane Watson, hopefully, a very fine all-rounder, will continue to be playing cricket for Australia, though not Test cricket. And finally, as you know, the West Indies will be touring Sri Lanka. They will be playing 2 Test matches. They'll be playing a one-day series, and they will also be playing some T20 cricket. They are expected to come during the middle of October, with the tour going on till about the 10th of November. Now, the West Indies aren't a very hot team, but this is about the right team that Sri Lanka should have, because Sri Lanka is also in the process of rebuilding their cricket. So the West Indies might be a good opponent for Sri Lanka to try and test out their young cricketers, give them the opportunity to do well, and maybe get their self-confidence back, and maybe get back winning ways. Now, Jason Holder, a young captain, a young cricketer, has been named the captain of West Indies. Now, he is someone who certainly has the potential to become a very fine all-rounder for West Indies, and for someone who looks good to serve West Indies cricket for a very long time. And in fact, West Indies needs some honest servants to serve their cricket, because West Indies sadly seem to be slipping the ladder very, very fast. And for a team that were considered world beaters, champions, and a team that was feared by many in the 80s, it is a very sorry state indeed to see where West Indies cricket is today. So that's the story on Around the Wickets on ThePapare.com. We hope you enjoyed it. So you can join us again every time or every week and listen to ThePapare, listen to Around the Wickets on Papare, and for all that's cricket. You can also follow Around the Wickets with #Around the Wickets on Twitter and also on Facebook, or you can simply email us editor@thepapare.com.